And it's easy to want to replicate the cycles that you have seen before you, but you've got to realize that at some point, someone has to break the cycle and actually live in the fruits of the labor. Formulating a new and a better and a healthier relationship with work, and if it costs me my company, that's okay. Firstly, sorry that there was no video on Monday. I haven't really got a strict upload schedule just yet, and I'm not promising to anything. However, I am really trying my best to be as consistent as possible on here. So I'm going to try and bring you 2 videos every week. This video was meant to go up on Monday, but I can't lie, Black Friday prep at CDB London has been trying to kick me up the backside. But it's all right, Friday is going to be an amazing sale. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are all doing well. In today's video, we're going to continue our conversation on trying to rebuild a healthy relationship with work. In my last video, I talked about toxic hustle culture and to a degree, how to tiptoe away from toxic self-care. And some of you shared your amazing thoughts and opinions, which I'm going to be including in this video so that we can all get involved in the conversation because you guys dropped some gems, drawing on your own experiences. If you haven't already watched my last video, definitely pause this one, click the iCard above and go and catch up on this conversation. I talk about the dangers of toxic hustle culture, my experiences with it, but also how my background and my life has given me an appreciation for actual hard work and how the opposite extreme end of, to a degree, toxic self-care might not actually be the solution to toxic hustle culture that we want it to be. But yeah, go and watch that video. I explain more about it. In this video, I am mainly going to be talking about ways that I have been rebuilding my relationship with work and maybe some things that you can implement in your own life or at least be thinking about if you feel as though you've fallen into toxic hustle culture, or actually if you feel as though you need a bit of a kick up the bum and you've been overindulging in self-care and kind of using it as an excuse to procrastinate. So I hope that this video actually helps you, but without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So the first thing that I've had to shift my mindset on drastically this year when it comes to rebuilding a healthier relationship with work has been realizing that life isn't all about work. I talked about this in my last video, and I feel as though living in the Western world, being a first-generation immigrant, seeing my parents work extremely hard to really provide for their family has definitely driven into me that life and your time should be completely consumed with work. However, I've come to realize that things like health and family and relationships, friendships, but also joy and adventure are actually really important parts of life. And for a lot of people, it can seem like that's a bit of a privilege, but I think I am in a privileged position. And sometimes that's not bad, accepting that you have these freedoms around you. And honestly, it's the thing that a lot of our parents have worked so hard for us to have, some degree of freedom. And it's easy to want to replicate the cycles that you have seen before you, but you've got to realize that at some point, someone has to break the cycle and actually live in the fruits of the labor. And I am by far not, YOLOing through life. That is not me. But what I'm actually trying my best to do is actually not make my work my life. Now, I know for a lot of people, their career means so much to them. It's pretty much who they are. And I'm not knocking that. But for me, that's just not it. But also I feel like no one should be ashamed that they're not like hyper obsessed with their career. For the people who that is, where they get their greatest sense of purpose and fulfillment, cool, go ahead with your bad self. But for me, a lady of leisure, I actually don't want to be so defined by my work. And that leads me on to point number 2. Detaching my self-worth from my work and my work ethic. It's easy to get really guilty about the fact that you haven't worked as hard as you should have. And to be honest, this habit started for me the bad habit started for me in university. Whilst I was at uni, I kind of got, I dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome, and I talked about that so much on my channel. Go through the archives and you'll be able to see my entire university journey. But whilst I was at Cambridge, I felt like I didn't belong. And because I felt like I didn't belong, and because I felt to a degree like an imposter, I always felt as though I had to constantly keep proving myself. If I didn't complete all the reading, it was proof that I wasn't meant to be there. If I wasn't working on an essay, I was kind of taking the space for granted. I kind of thought, and I looked at everybody else, and everyone kind of within the university and outside kind of overhypes this idea of, oh, you're going to this big boy uni, you're always going to be working, you're always going to be reading, you're always going to be writing. And so I thought if my time wasn't filled with all-nighters at the library and reading all the time and writing all the time, that I was being lazy or that I was doing something wrong. And so the days when I did, burn out and get really tired, I would feel guilty. I would feel upset with my body that I had allowed it, or that it had basically failed me. And now I was incapable of living up to these kind of stereotypes about uni and times at uni. And if I didn't tick off all the items that I was meant to revise, I would be really, really hard on myself, even if I was taking much needed rest. But also, even if I was just procrastinating, I would be extremely hard on myself afterwards. Now, I'm not gonna lie though, it wouldn't stop me from procrastinating, but it would lead to a lot of guilt and a lot of feelings of, to a degree, almost even like shame. Like I used to feel really bad about it. And I think creating that bad relationship with work where you kind of have to shame yourself into working is dangerous. And I think that's oftentimes what toxic hustle culture can do, right? It shames you into working really, really hard. But I don't think shame and fear is a good place to be working from. And yes, for some people, fear and shame are great motivators. But for me, I don't want to live my life ruled by those things. And so reframing my idea of self-worth and kind of my identity, and making the part of my identity that was kind of made up of work smaller, definitely helped me to focus on other things that make life worth living. But also, I just think if you let anything become such a huge part of who you think you are, you're going to get a lot of anxiety surrounding the changes that may inevitably happen in that arena or in that field. For example, as an entrepreneur, whilst I was building my businesses, there would be days where we would get no sales, weeks where we would get no, months where we would have no sales. Biggest man thing. But the thing is, if my self-worth, and because my self-worth was so attached to whether people wanted to buy from me or not, or whether people were buying from me or not, it meant that literally as the Shopify stats were going up and down, the same pattern was happening within my emotions and within my mental stability and my mental health. And that's not healthy, right? You can't control all of the odds. What happens if you get, made redundant and it wasn't necessarily your fault? Are you going to kind of lay away in this self-pitying? Like, I'm not saying your career shouldn't be important, because I think work is an important part of life. It is an important part of society, but it's not all that you are. So learning to detach my self-worth and my self-value, whether I thought I was a valuable person, really detaching that and putting it in more steadier places, like my faith, in my family's thoughts of me. If you have a functional and not toxic family, then you can do that. But if your family is toxic, don't even care about what those people say. But yeah, like I would put it in more stable places, realizing that I wasn't just what I do. And I think that's one of the most important ways you can actually rebuild a relationship with work, realizing you're not just what you do. However, as much as work may not be all that you are, work is important. And that kind of leads me on to the third thing. I didn't want to kind of run so far away from the concept or the ideas of toxic hustle culture that I ended up kind of self-sabotaging because I was doing self-care, right? I don't think self-care is bad. I do it quite a lot, but I'm intentional with it. A major way that I stopped self-care from actually turning into self-sabotage was applying a principle which my dad has been telling me all my life. He literally repeated to me at least once a week. Anytime I get on the phone with this man, it's the same sentence that concludes our conversation, which is, Courtney, do the hard work now. And obviously we all know about, well, you might not know about the concept of delayed gratification, doing the hard work now, reaping the benefits later, allowing yourself to kind of be self-disciplined now so that you can enjoy later. But one thing he's always emphasizing with me, especially if I am, kind of not lazying about, but if I am being too slow to make a very hard decision, if I'm putting something off, especially because, I'm worried, I'm overthinking, I'm anxious, legitimate reasons, he'll tell me it's actually better for you to just make a decision now. The more you leave it to build up, the more you're just going to allow yourself to cover up deeper issues, or allow these deeper issues to continue to build and build and build, when actually you can just cut all that time in half and deal with the hard things now. There is no doubt that you're going to be successful, and there is no doubt that you're going to make lemonade out of lemons. However, you need to know what you're dealing with, and you can't know what you are dealing with and what resources you have or what your next step is going to be if you refuse to look at the path lying ahead of you. You have to open up your eyes. You have to do the hard thing now. And I try and live by that. And actually, one of your comments made me remember this when I was planning for this video, and I'm going to read it out now. So Esther Chantala Mungalaba. Oh, I'm sorry if I butchered your name. A very beautiful name though. I really appreciate this conversation. I'm at a point where I sort of regret having prioritized self-care at one point in my life, because now it feels like I'm suffering the consequences of not just stepping up and grinding as hard as I should have when I should have. Yes, at the time I felt overwhelmed and like I was drowning in work that I didn't fully understand or was not capable of handling. But my self-care response to all the stress was to just not do any work at all for days at a time. Very often, anxiety and frustration would keep me up late at night, and so with self-care as my excuse, I would just not show up the next day. I would flake on people and isolate. Truth is, this, quote, taking time for myself, unquote, was very fear and shame-based. I was running away and hiding, not taking care of myself. If I could talk to that past me, I would tell her that self-care in that season looked like doing the hard things first and early, getting uncomfortable and speaking up about my struggle to the people who were there to help, asking questions no matter how stupid I thought it would make me look, sleeping in, turning off my phone, not responding to messages, taking long baths, splurging on myself, taking it slow, etc. was not going to take care of me. Those things for me were just very short-lived, superficial pseudo remedies for much bigger issues I had to deal with, like self-confidence, self-sabotage, and poor coping mechanisms. And you know what? I completely resonate with that. And I'm not knocking the superficial things that can sometimes come with self-care and self-care content or the self-care movement or the things we do for self-care, our practices, right? I think having a bubble bath, buying yourself something nice, they can really help. But I think that the point that they actually become unhelpful is when they are covering up deeper issues. I love what you said, Esther. The point of self-care is really doing the hard work, and oftentimes it's doing the hard internal work. We've spoken about this often on the To My Sisters podcast, about doing the internal work as a form of self-care, because I think what's easy to do is kind of pamper ourselves and make ourselves look or feel good on the outside, and kind of convince ourselves that because we've had this weekend or this evening of rest because we had a bubble bath, that we're actually okay, when really and truly we still feel the same emotions towards work the next day or towards meeting our friends for that evening dinner. You still feel anxious, or you still feel as though you lack confidence or you have low self-esteem. Self-care is actually dealing with those issues at the root. And yes, maybe dealing with those issues, you'll have to take more time to maybe look at yourself in the mirror, maybe dress more confidently. But at least you know all of these things that you are doing, all of these things that you're buying, all these times and the bath that you're taking are actually helping you get closer to your real goal, because they're getting to the root of your actual issue. So really and truly, what is balance? Hunty Lou said, and very honestly, actually, thank you so much for your transparency. You know, we're all about that around here. Definitely have gotten to the point of self-sabotaging in the name of self-care, mainly because I followed the trend of self-care rather than me actually sitting down, evaluating my goals, and working on maintaining a healthy balance of work and rest. I think self-care includes the work, because if I take the time to do the admin or the boring stuff to reach my goals, then that's me giving myself the chance to grow and achieve my goals. But then there is the beauty of allowing yourself to rest and recover. It's all about balance, and that's what I have been learning. I need to find that balance. And I think that that's one of the biggest things a lot of us struggle with, really realizing our goals, right? Not just achieving them, but actually knowing what they are. I think for me, work has always been a step towards freedom. And it's ironic that sometimes we allow our work to be our biggest trap in the illusion that it's going to gain us freedom. And I'm not one of those people who's like, quit your 9 to 5, it's a trap, it's a rat race. I'm definitely not that person. What I've realized is freedom isn't necessarily the form of work, but it's your heart in your work. Yes, sometimes you're going to be doing a job that you don't like. And yes, there will be parts of even the job that you love that you don't like, but you're getting it done regardless, right? But not getting it done will probably make you feel worse than actually doing it. And I might make a video about this, but one thing I think can often be over glamorized when talking about work, career, purpose is this idea of constantly 100% of the time having to be happy. I think most people's lives will attest to the fact that you won't be happy all the time. You'll be happy the majority of the time, and that's good enough. And the times where you are unhappy are always for a meaningful purpose, and they're always kind of helping you grow as a person. Whatever you do for your personal development, for your financial goals, it should all be pulling you closer to the ultimate goal that you have for your life. And I think a lot of us don't know. We don't know what we want for our lives. And I'm not trying to put any pressure on anyone to figure out what their whole life is going to be about at whatever age you're at. I think it is a massive question to ask yourself. But I think one thing that is important to do is asking yourself, what is important to me? I think I've said this a few times on my channel, but at the beginning of this year, I told myself I only want to work on things that really bring me joy and that I'm actually passionate about. And I've been able to do that. And the reason why I said that was because I was sick of my work, quite frankly, making me depressed. And I didn't want that to be a part of my life. And your goal might be different from mine. All of us have different goals. We all have different motivations based on our life experiences and life circumstances. But I realized for me, there is no point me setting this goal of freedom and of joy for my entire life and doing things which take me away from that, and realizing that the purpose of my life was not just to work. If work was making me a bad sister, a bad friend, a bad person, a bad partner, just bad to be around, if it was really damaging my character but enlarging my bank account, it was kind of pointless at the time because it didn't reach my goals. Now, for some people, that might not be a goal for them, right? To them, they might not care about their relationships. They might not care about the other things that exist within their life. And that's completely fine. If you do, you boo, I don't know. But it's important for everyone to actually know what their goals are and to be clear on that, or you can kind of get whisked away by all your responsibilities, your new things that you have to do at work, getting into comparison, getting into competitions. If you're not clear on what you actually want for your life, it's so easy for all these other things to creep in and kind of ruin your experience at work, or ruin your experience at home, or ruin your experience with the world. You're not making the most of it because you don't really feel like the world is yours. As soon as I realized that the path that I'm on leads toward freedom and joy, that's what I decided for myself. There will be obstacles along the way and hurdles along the way, but I'm going to jump over them. There will also be other things that will help me to get closer and closer to that finish line. But as soon as I let something which was supposed to help me get to that finish line become an obstacle or a hurdle, or even worse, a wall or a barrier to me actually getting to where I want to be, it's something that I really had to reevaluate as to whether it's worth my time, my efforts, my energy, or whether it's time to move on to something else and completely move out of its way. And that for me has actually been making a hard decision to even leave my business for a little bit and stop what I was doing for my full-time job, which was CDB London, and decide that actually I'm going to explore something else, something which allows me to take care of myself, but more importantly, to actually rebuild a new relationship with the concept of work. It's something that I loved at the beginning. It was my dream, and I think to a degree it actually still is my dream. But as soon as your dream begins to kill you, nah. So it's time for me to step back and reevaluate. And I think that there is a beauty in efficiency. And I might talk about this actually in terms of like things that I wish I had known a bit earlier, or mistakes that I've made, because I think I put so much emphasis on having the thing that I didn't really think about how I was going to build this thing to work for me, how I was going to build it to actually align with my goals, because I didn't know what my goals was, right? I didn't know what my goals were. My goal was to have this massive company, but the company is not it. Like, it's as great as it is, it's not all that I want my life to be made up of, because I realized that doesn't fulfill me. And it's been a great time of discovery. It's also come with many lessons learned the hard way. And yeah, I'm getting to a point now where I'm realizing it's okay to give this up. And I might do a video talking about why I'm leaving and delving more into it, but it pretty much is the last two videos. Formulating a new and a better and a healthier relationship with work. And if it costs me my company, that's okay, because I can build another company, and at least I'll know I'll be healthier, happier, and more fulfilled by that. And that's what matters to me. So I hope that you find what matters to you, and I hope that this video actually did help you. So I will talk to you very, very soon in my next video. And as always, stay beautiful and stay blessed.